Hey everybody, my name's SplatoonKid9000 and welcome to the last episode, our last short film in the Dinosauria series. This is The Last Tyrant, and of course is made by Dead Sound, or David Ansby, I think. Yeah. And we're gonna get straight into it. I'm gonna read what this says, of course, the story. By the way, I am feeling just the tiniest bit sick because I had a flu over the weekend, so I apologize if I make any sick noises throughout it. So I'm sorry. Um, so it says here, this is the fifth story in my Dinosauria animated series. It is set 66 million years ago in the late Cretaceous, North America, and covers a dramatic extinction event that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs. Oh. This. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's see then. Oh. The asteroid, yep. Oh, it's a prehistoric bird, okay. Huh. Oh, what's that? Oh. Is that, it's either Ornithomimus or Struthiomimus. I'm not so sure if Gallimimus lived in North America or not. Okay. Wow. Oh. Oh. Oh, I know what that is. Yeah, that's a T-Rex. Oh. Oh. Is he selecting his prey or something? Oh. Is he... Oh. He only came there for a drink, okay. So he's not hungry. So those birds again. Oh. Oh, looks like they've just hatched their eggs, or laid them. That's nice. Oh. Here comes. I see the meteor. Yeah, there's the asteroid. Wow. Yeah, they see it. They have no idea what's gonna come at them. Jeez. Here we go. Oh no. Here we go. So, wait. Don't do this to me, man. Oh, dude. Oh. Yo. It's growing weak. Jeez. Man. I'm actually tearing up. I'm serious right now. That's it. That's how they died, man. Jesus Christ. Oh. Oh yeah, the birds, yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah, the bird survived. Wait. Wait a minute. Oh. Oh my god. Is that Styracosaurus skull? Oh, there we go. Oh. Wow, man. The last tyrant. Oh my god. At first I thought it was just gonna be all sad and all that, but it's beautiful in the end, man.
Hello, this is David, and thank you very much for watching my film. If you'd like to know more about how I make these animated short films, feel free to check out the accompanying making of behind the scenes video.
Yeah, we're checking it out.
In the meantime, super special thanks to all my top Patreon supporters on screen right now. Without these guys, this series really would not have been possible. Thanks again. Bye.
Well, jeez, man, I don't know what to say. Like, at first I thought it was all going to be about, like, you know, the death of the dinosaurs, but it turns out it's more like, you know, honoring them in a way. So, now that we finished that, I might as well see the behind-the-scenes video on this, the making of The Last Tyrant. So we might as well, watch it. Okay.
Hello, my name is David, and welcome to this behind-the-scenes video covering the 5th episode of my Dinosauria series, The Last Tyrant. In this video, I'll be going over all of the artwork behind the film, the research, the themes, how I animate these shorts, all of the bits and pieces that go into making these projects, which includes this big old Tyrannosaurus Rex clay sculpture I made for the film. Now, I recommend getting yourself a drink, sitting down and getting comfy, because this is going to be a very long one.
I haven't got anything, sorry. Alright.
Now, I feel it's important to express just how obsessed with dinosaurs I am and have been my whole life.
Yeah.
They are directly linked to my love of being creative. Dinosaurs are what inspired me to start doing art. This here is one of my oldest surviving drawings. And here is the little gremlin child who drew it. Dinosaurs are what I would always draw as a kid, and dinosaurs were the subjects of my first sculptures as well.
I'm guessing that's baryonyx?
My first real attempt at sculpting was a Diplodocus that I didn't take any pictures of, and of which only this piece of the tail seems to have survived. But my second sculpture I do have a picture of, this wonky looking T-Rex. Since then I've made maybe 100 dinosaur sculptures, and they're slowly filling up my house. Dinosaurs, as you can imagine, were also what inspired me to start animating as well. This super ugly T-Rex on screen right now being one of the first things I ever fully 3D modelled, rigged and animated. I owe a lot of my artistic ability, my creative drive, and therefore fundamentally who I am as a human being, to my obsession with these wondrous, ancient and mysterious animals. I mention all of this because this film depicts the death of the dinosaurs, but I didn't really want that to be the focus of the film. I didn't want this film to be about tragedy. I set out to create instead a film about the fantastic legacy of the dinosaurs and the inspiration they have given so many of us, driving we human beings to be more creative and driving us to learn and to think. Most of the research I drew upon for this film was already in this sketchbook, because this book embodies that very concept. It's full of the kinds of drawings and fossils and speculations and creativity and inspiration that I wanted The Last Tyrant to celebrate. I didn't set out to make The Last Tyrant a sad and tragic film about the death of the dinosaurs. That does happen, and it is sad, but what I truly wanted to set out and make was a film celebrating the way that these animals lived and the effect they've had on me and many, many others.
Yeah. Sculpture, yeah.
For each episode of my Dinosauria series, I've made an accompanying clay sculpture of the main character. For The Last Tyrant, I of course decided to sculpt a final Tyrannosaurus Rex. I wanted to base the pose of this sculpture loosely on this drawing here, but this pose is a bit of a challenge to translate into sculpture form. This sculpture was going to be the biggest and heaviest of the series, and this T-Rex here is supporting its entire weight on just one leg. That leg is a huge structural weakness, but I had a plan. I started this guy off with some armature wire and a makeshift cardboard core for his torso. I then covered these body parts in Daz air drying clay, this stuff, and waited for it all to dry. All except for the left weight supporting leg, which I instead covered in Milliput. This stuff, which cures a lot stronger than Daz dries. My plan was to make most of the left leg of this piece out of Milliput, which I was hoping would be strong enough to hold the whole sculpture up without any extra ugly support beams. Here is an example of an ugly support beam in one of my earlier sculptures. I then proceeded to glue all of the body parts together into a basic Tyrannosaurus framework, which I then bulked out with more and more clay. Once I was satisfied with the shape and musculature of the piece, I then moved on to the final layer of skin details. You'll notice that the final layer of skin is a different colour, but don't be fooled. It's the same Daz air drying clay, it's just stone coloured instead of terracotta. I did this because I simply ran out of my terracotta clay, but it turns out that using a different coloured clay for the final layer is kind of satisfying. It acted as a strong, obvious visual indicator of just how finished the sculpture was.
Oh. I see.
The finished sculpt was an unusual patchwork of colours. You can very clearly see a lot of stone clay, some terracotta clay, and even a bit of milliput sticking out the bottom of the left weight-bearing leg. After I primed the piece into one uniform colour, I felt I could finally see the sculpture as one cohesive whole. I was happy with the look of it and proceeded to paint the sculpture with a collection of acrylic paints and brushes.
Ooh.
This is actually the 5th T-Rex I've sculpted that I can remember. The first I mentioned earlier, this guy, who I resculpted and repainted multiple times. Here's one version, and here's another. He's a very deformed looking T-Rex, but he was my first attempt. My next T-Rex was this recreation of Sue, which is by far my biggest. She's 40 inches long and is very heavy. This one I also resculpted and repainted. Finally, I made these two dueling T-Rexes just 1 year after Sue. One in a modern, more accurate and contemporary style, and the other in a more retro Ray Harryhausen cheesy movie monster style. Getting all of these guys out wasn't easy. And man, are they starting to show their ages. Each was under a hefty coat of dust, and cat hair, and cobwebs, and some are even missing a few teeth. But lining them all up like this, you can really see my artistic progression throughout the years. Each was made by a different David at a different time. I think it's especially interesting to see the first compared to the last. I mean, over 10 years separate these two sculptures. What I think really sets my newer Dinosauria series T-Rex apart from the others is the calmer and more peaceful pose. To see history's most notorious apex predator depicted in such a calm and peaceful state is incredibly appealing to me. But the animal's violent and predatory nature is still alluded to in the model's body and facial scars.
Ah, yep.
Here is the fifth and final Dinosauria sculpture alongside his 4 brothers and sisters, and I couldn't really be happier with them. My favourite here has to be the final Tyrannosaurus Rex. This isn't just my favourite Dinosauria sculpture, this is one of my favourite sculptures I've ever made. I am very happy with how this guy turned out. And what else can I say? This little family of sculptures is very close to my heart. They were fun to make, they were fun to paint, and I think they all look outstanding, finally together and finished.
It looks so nice, don't they? The story, yep.
This film is set in the Hill Creek Formation in what is now the United States of America. In the first act, it's spring. Dinosaurs are thriving, some animals have young, some are nesting, and some are competing for mates. The dinosaurs here are portrayed as wonderful and prosperous. A beautiful, balanced ecosystem of near mythical giants. But not for long.
Nah.
In Act 2, the infamous cataclysmic asteroid hits the Earth. The world is ending. Some individuals have survived the immediate hit, but all are seemingly doomed. Eggs fail to hatch, vegetation quickly withers and dies, and all the animals are starving to death. That perfect, harmonious ecosystem has totally collapsed.
Yeah.
The reign of the dinosaurs is over.
Jeez. But
in the final act of the film, Part 3, we skip 66 million years later and all is not lost. A small group of dinosaurs have survived in the form of modern birds. Not only have the dinosaurs survived, but they are remembered. Instead of focusing on the tragic deaths of these wondrous creatures, the film switches focus to their incredible legacy. A celebration of the most immense and successful and incredible creatures to have ever existed. With 3 acts come 3 colour schemes.
Oh, yeah.
Act 1 depicts the prosperity of the dinosaurs with complementary, heavily stylised colours. Warm browns against colder blues. This look is heavily inspired by Sharp Teeth, a different dinosaur film I made back in 2019.
I'm gonna need to see
I
that.
have also used similar complementary combinations in a number of my previous films to represent opposites, good and bad, in a healthy balance, which I think suits this scene pretty perfectly. Act 2 depicts the extinction of the dinosaurs and simply switches out that lovely blue hue for a harsher red.
Yeah.
This simple change turns the film's look incredibly hostile. There is no warm-cold balance anymore, it's warm-hot now, looking sickly and inhospitable, which helps convey the apocalyptic nature of the KT catastrophe quite well.
Jeez.
And finally, Act 3 depicts the legacy and survival of the dinosaurs, and the colours here are all over the place. It's vibrant, it's warm, it's cold, it's mixed, it's varied, it's alive. There isn't really a scheme here, because this is a giant, almost messy celebration of everything dinosaur.
Yeah.
I create these films using a mix of 2D and 3D animation techniques. Most of the characters are 3D models animated in 3D, and most of the environments are 2D drawings animated in 2D. Take this short sequence for example. This is a 3D modelled T-Rex that I've animated in 3-dimensional space in a traditional 3D manner using the animation software Blender. I then texture the model to look as 2D as I possibly can to help it blend into its 2D environment. The environment that this animal lives in is completely two-dimensional. All of the foreground and background environmental elements are drawn using Photoshop and are simple 2D drawings that I paint and then drag into the scene as well. Finally, I do one final pass of traditional 2D animation work where needed, which I animate in either Photoshop or Blender depending on the effect. Combine all of these techniques together and we get the final animated sequence. The Last Tyrant required an extraordinary number of highly detailed backdrops, most of which are only on screen for a couple of seconds. I painted a whopping 96 unique backdrops for this film, which is more than any other film in this series.
Wow.
Which makes sense, this film is the longest. But that number is so high that it is only topped by one other film of mine, which was Friendly Shadow, which needed 112 backdrops. Usually, drawing these backdrops is a chore, but I surprisingly found myself enjoying these quite a lot. I think the key to not getting frustrated or bored was in the variety of places that this short film visits. One day I'd be painting a modern day frozen pond scene, the next day I'd be painting a prehistoric apocalyptic landscape, and the next day I was recreating a vintage movie poster. I legitimately think this may have been the most fun I've ever had drawing backdrops for any film I've ever made, which was a very refreshing change.
Yeah, what's with that face? Oh my god. Featured species, okay.
Tyrannosaurus Rex is the star of the film and is also probably my favourite dinosaur. The original Jurassic Park definitely brainwashed me from a very young age to believe that this animal is the coolest thing to ever exist.
Yeah.
I am very, very happy with my design for this species. I went for the modern, contemporary, lipped, bulky and featherless look. A handful of T-Rex's early relatives do have evidence of feathers, and T-Rex is a Coelurosaur, and Coelurosaurs are generally quite fluffy, but skin impressions of T-Rex itself seem to suggest a scaly covering, at least in the tiny post-it note sized areas we know of. Ancestral traits like feathers and fur are hard for animals to totally lose though, so I decided to include a coat of fuzz on the unborn T-Rex hatchling, hinting at the animal's feathered past.
Yeah.
Perhaps the young have a coat of feathers that the adults eventually shed.
Yeah, that's what they believe, yeah.
My T-Rex is also slightly sexually dimorphic. The male depicted on the right is slightly smaller and leaner than the female on the left. The male also has comparatively larger keratin crests above his brows for sexual display. This is mostly conjecture, but it's all more than reasonable.
I see.
Both of the T-Rexes featured in the film are pretty heavily scarred, but the male specifically has some pretty obvious facial scars clearly inflicted by another Rex, which is based on a collection of real-life fossil evidence we have of face-biting among tyrannosaurs. We also have pretty strong fossil evidence of cannibalism among Tyrannosaurus Rex, possibly during times of extreme environmental stress, which, unfortunately, if you look closely in the film, you can see has occurred here. Sorry about ruining their cute little sniffy kiss from earlier.
Oh my god, I'm not even gonna comment on that. Jesus. Oh my god.
As mentioned earlier, I have sculpted a lot of T-Rexes in clay, but I have also 3D modelled and animated a lot of T-Rexes as well. T-Rex is my favourite dinosaur, and dinosaurs are my favourite things, so it was kind of inevitable. When I first started playing with animation back in 2011 to 2012, a T-Rex is what I wanted to bring to life. This hideous, unfinished 3D model was the very first thing I ever made in Blender. My next go at this species was a couple of months later, after I'd learned a lot of the basics, with this fully finished, rigged, textured and animated T-Rex a few months later. It's not well animated, but it's animated.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next T-Rex I tackled was this one from my animated short film Small Beginnings back in 2015, which was one of the first fully finished animated short films I ever made. Then came my Mother of Nature feathered T-Rex from 2018 and my Sharp Teeth Scaly T-Rex from 2019, which are both variants on the same model.
Oh.
Second to last, here is my unused All Days T-Rex from 2020, which I remodeled and retextured into my final Dinosauria T-Rex featured in this film, The Last Tyrant.
Wow. See, like the...
Lining all of these models up, like I did with my sculptures, I think really helps illustrate my progression as a 3D artist. I mean, these models represent a decade of animation work from start to finish, which is kinda crazy. Triceratops horridus is a Chasmosaurian ceratopsian dinosaur, and again, I'm very happy with the model I ended up with here. A few episodes ago, I decided to depict another ceratopsian, Chasmosaurus, with tail quills, in reference to the very basal ceratopsian dinosaur Psittacosaurus, which is known to have these quills. Since Triceratops is not only distantly related to Psittacosaurus, but also closer related to Chasmosaurus, being a chasmosaur itself, I decided to keep up my own evolutionary continuity and add a nod to these quills.
Yeah, the baby.
The Triceratops calf in this film has these quills running down its tail, which the adult does not, seemingly shedding them as it ages. Perhaps the quills help the babies blend better into their environment, which the larger, more powerful adults don't really need. Very similar to what I suggested with my T-Rex and its feathers. You'll also notice that the mother Triceratops has a very obvious Tyrannosaurus Rex bite mark to her frill, which later on in the film, you see exactly how she got that injury.
I see. Edmontosaurus, yep.
Edmontosaurus annectens is a hadrosaurid dinosaur and is very, very large. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest animal that lives in the Hell Creek Formation that we know of.
Wow, I can tell.
We have a number of incredibly well-preserved examples of Edmontosaurus, some preserving not only the bones but also the skin and the muscle and the bulk of the animal. Wow. For example, you'll notice that all of the hadrosaurs in my series have hands that look like this. A sort of mitten of flesh with one larger hoofed nail, one smaller pointed nail, and one nailless pinky. This configuration is based on one of these incredible Edmontosaurus specimens, preserving flesh, bones, skins, scales, nails and all. You may have noticed in the film that this particular Edmontosaurus is bearing scars. That's because this dinosaur is based on the DMNH1943 specimen, which is an Edmontosaurus annectens fossil that has both a wonky hip and a U-shaped bite mark taken out of its spine. This bite was almost irrefutably caused by a failed hunting attempt from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. This watering hole scene, I feel, is given a little bit more depth and tension when you realise that two of the main dinosaurs this T-Rex is having a standoff with have been attacked by this very individual in the past.
That's why this... Yeah, I see. Scared of it because they got bitten by it before.
Pachycephalosaurus is a pachycephalosaurid dinosaur and is the only type of its species featured in this whole Dinosauria series. 3 species of pachycephalosaurids were supposedly known from the Hell Creek Formation, being Dracorex, Sticky Moloch, and Pachycephalosaurus itself, but most consider all 3 of these to be the same species now, just at different growth stages. In reference to this, you can see that the female and the juveniles in the film have a slightly more Sticky Moloch-like appearance to their skulls compared to the mature, competing males. I also decided to include those Psittacosaurus-based porcupine-like quills to the tails of this species. There's no direct evidence of this, but Pachycephalosaurids are considered more closely related to ceratopsians over any other group, and since a lot of my ceratopsians in this series have tail quills or coats, I decided to also include them on my Pachycephalosaurs as a nod to their very distant relation.
Yeah, there we go.
The 5th animal featured in the film is Struthiomimus or Ornithomimus. I'm honestly not too sure. I included this species because I wanted to add an ornithomimid to my Dinosauria series, and this species is often depicted alongside the rest of this Hell Creek gang. But looking deeper into it, I couldn't actually find any decent evidence of Struthiomimus or Ornithomimus in this place in time.
Oh.
There's almost certainly something I'm missing here, because of how confidently I've seen this species depicted in this place, but at the end of the day, I decided if Saurian was confident enough to include this species here, that was enough evidence for me. The model and design I came up with for my Struthiomimus is actually one of my favourites. This guy was a lot of fun to animate. This body plan isn't really like anything else in the series, and I feel the skittish, fast-moving lookout character I managed to capture in the film was quite believable and appropriate.
Yeah, it's like an ostrich, yeah. Oh, there's an ad coming up, hang on. Alamosaurus, yep.
Alamosaurus is a
Alamosaurus.
titanosaur and is definitely not from the Hill Creek Formation. Instead, this sauropod is found in more southern formations in North America, closer to modern-day Texas over modern-day Montana. But this isn't an inaccuracy. If you look closely in the film, Alamosaurus is never actually featured on screen with any other of the Hill Creek species, and that's because this film takes place in two different locations. A more northern Hill Creek floodplain in Montana or North Dakota, and a more southern, more arid inland plain somewhere around Texas. The only other species that Alamosaurus in the film is featured on screen with is a pair of dead Quetzalcoatlus, which are two species that are found together very often.
I see. Okay.
Speaking of which, Quetzalcoatlus is the only species featured in this film that I didn't create a 3D model for.
Oh, yeah.
It was much easier to just draw them into the backdrop since they aren't moving.
I see.
Also featured in The Last Tyrant are a small collection of avian dinosaurs. We have a handful of modern dinosaurs in the form of a mute swan, a crow, and some mallard ducks. The swan and the duck I had to 3D model, texture, and rig for just a single shot each, so they're not as highly detailed as the rest of the species in the film. The crow gets a whole lot more screen time, and as you can see, is an overall much higher detailed and better rigged character.
I see.
The last avian dinosaur featured in the film is this small, nameless Cretaceous... hang on a second. Yeah, there we go. The last species featured in this film is this small, nameless Cretaceous bird.
Okay.
This isn't really based on any particular species, as none of the known Hill Creek bird species really fit what I wanted for the film.
Oh.
The first version of this character I made was just a heavily modified version of my crow model, which you can actually still see in my Dinosauria series trailer. I decided to redesign that model because the first version looked far too much like a modern bird and not a Mesozoic bird. This is still an imaginary species though, which I'm sure some people are going to take issue with, but I mean, But it is based on a collection of other small Cretaceous birds that do exist, just not from this time or place, like Electorornis with the toes, and Junornis with the tail quills. I have named him Made-up-ornis Birdie, meaning made-up bird. Bird.
Oh my god.
Finally, featured in the film are a whole bunch of returning cast members from previous Dinosauria films, including a Styracosaurus, Arctic Troodons, some Pachyrhinosaurus, Lambeosaurus, and a flock of Geosternbergia. This film, I think, holds the record for the most characters I've ever created for a single film. As you can see, the cast is utterly enormous.
Wow.
All of these characters had to be 3D modelled, rigged, textured, and animated, which took a lot of work. But I was more than happy to make all of these guys. I'm almost sad I wasn't able to include more species in here. I think Anzu and Ankylosaurus are the two I feel are missing from this lineup. But
I see.
I had to stop somewhere.
Yeah. Easter eggs, okay?
As this film was intended to be a celebration and finale to my Dinosauria series, I really wanted to pay homage to a lot of the things that inspired me along the way. To start off with, there are a bunch of references to my earlier dinosaur-themed work, predating Dinosauria. These Lambeosaurus shots here are supposed to be
Oh.
in reference to my old Small Beginnings short film. There are also tons of references to sharp teeth that
Oh.
I've already mentioned, with the colour scheme, the time, the place, species chosen, and so much more. All previous episodes of my Dinosauria series are referenced as well, as you probably noticed, showing off what happened to each of the main characters after their respective films. And this film literally ends just as the series began, with my initial reveal trailer for my Dinosauria series playing on the projector in the museum hall.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
There are also a lot of references to the little bits and pieces of fossils and specimens and other paleo media that inspired this series.
Oh, yeah.
Considering the last act of this film is essentially just a paleo scissor reel celebration of all things dinosaur, it is ripe with Easter eggs. In no particular order, we have the asymmetrical Hanus styracosaurus specimen that was the very fossil that inspired this whole series to begin with. I absolutely had to include a reference to this fossil above all else. Also featured as a poster for the Ray Harryhausen film The Valley of Gwangi. Ray Harryhausen was a huge inspiration for All Days, the unfinished project that eventually turned into this Dinosauria series. In the montage, I also briefly show a mute swan walking atop a frozen pond, which if you've been watching the making of videos, you would know that this is the very site that gave me the idea for our frozen past. The painting Duria Antiquior, a more ancient Dorset, can also be seen too, which is a painting from 1830 and is widely regarded as the first piece of proper paleo art. This particular piece was a huge inspiration for a more ancient spring, which is also named after this painting.
I see, yeah.
Speaking of a more ancient spring, this dinosaur with a broken back featured in the film is based on the holotype specimen for Parasaurolophus, which makes a quick cameo in The Last Tyrant, as do a bunch of previously mentioned mallard ducks. Mallards have heavily sexually dimorphic colouring, and these colours inspired the look of my Corythosaurus from A More Ancient Spring.
And lots of Easter eggs.
And finally, this Triceratops, this alligator, and this T-Rex, this whole museum hall, are all directly based on the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh, which features this Wankel Rex T-Rex cast. I have come to this exact museum and visited this exact T-Rex countless times in my life. I think every single dino nut has their museum, the one that means the most to them, the one they visit the most, and this museum is mine. It's a really special and inspirational place for me, easily one of my favourite places in the world, and I couldn't think of a more fitting place to end my Dinosauria series.
Evaluation? Yep.
As far as scientific inaccuracies go, this film certainly has its fair share. As mentioned before, I have no idea if Struthiomimus actually belongs here, and I also think that this should probably be Triceratops prorosus instead of Horridus. This also isn't really how fossils work. This skull would have broken to bits if it were poking out of the ground for so many millions of years.
Yeah.
And I don't think the asteroid impact would be visible from the Hill Creek Formation as I depict in the film, because it hit the Earth far further south in the Gulf of Mexico. Also, Birdicus Maidopicus isn't real. But I don't care. I love this film. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
This film was surprisingly one of the smoothest productions I've ever taken on. There were no real issues from start to finish, which is very rare, especially for a film this long and complicated. The previous episode of my Dinosauria series, Sea and Sky, was one of the most mismanaged and messy films I've ever put together, and I made doubly sure that didn't happen here. The Last Tyrant, thankfully, ended up being one of the most efficiently managed projects I've ever done. This film was huge and challenging and ambitious, so it still took a lot of work and time to make. It was challenging, but it was never frustrating, and I rarely wasted any of my time. As a standalone, finished piece, I think this film works really well. As the end of a series, I think it works even better, and as a celebration of all things dinosaur, I think it's at its best. This film marks the end of my Dinosauria series, but this series has always been more than just animated short films for me. It's been an all-encompassing creative journey consisting of research and drawings and sculptures and hard work, which just happens to culminate into finished films at the end. And it's been brilliant. Before starting this Dinosauria project, I was feeling worn out, stressed, and creatively spent. I created this Dinosauria project simply because I love dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are what made me start drawing, they're what made me start sculpting, and they're what made me start animating. And 18 months ago, I desperately needed to remind myself why I loved doing those things. And it all worked. This project was a wonder to work on. It wasn't easy work. I mean, easy work is almost never fun. It was a lot of hard work, but it was fun and challenging and satisfying hard work. This 5-part Dinosauria series is probably the best artistic endeavour I've ever taken on. This has been a real passion project for me, as you can probably tell, as you've probably noticed, and I'm incredibly proud of all of it. Thank you all for watching.
Wow.
If you want to support me or read the sketchbook I've been showing off in this video, you can. High-resolution photographs of my whole Dinosauria sketchbook are available on my Patreon page right now. Please consider supporting me over there if you want. Now, the video is over, which means I have to go outside and record some B-roll for the outro. This time I'm definitely going to take it easy. I'm just going to lie on the ground outside in my garden and stare up at the sky. See you.
Wow. It's kind of sad it's over now, because this was great, seriously, this is amazing.
Super duper special thanks to all my top Patreon supporters on screen right now. Without these folks, this series would not have been possible. I know I say it every time, but it's very true. They're the best. Thank you all again, and I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as I did. Bye, guys.
Man. Well, guys, that's it for now. Man, there's clearly nothing else for me to say. It was an amazing journey just reacting to this series and just seeing The Last Tyrant and all that, you know? And just, I don't know what to say, honestly. And it's nice just to get to, you know, enjoy just amazing creative legacy, because just like David, you know, dinosaurs have had a big influence on me, you know, because I just love animals, I love dinosaurs, I love just anything to do with nature, you know. Yeah. There's really nothing else for me to say. I'm just gonna do the outro right here, and let me know what you thought of the film down in the comments. I thought that it was amazing, honestly. I loved it. Yeah. So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, then leave a like, and if you want to see more of my content in the future, then hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next adventure. Peace out, everyone.